So let's be honest, when your hormones tank, your business feels it first. Your focus starts to wander, your patience packs up and leaves, and that unstoppable drive you built your career on suddenly seems like it's running on decaf. Welcome back to the Founder Series, where we talk about what it really takes to build something lasting, a business, a family, a legacy, all while your body and hormones are rewriting the playbook. I'm Dr. Rebbecca Hertel. I am a menopause certified practitioner, an osteopathic physician, entrepreneur, speaker, and yes, professional plate spinner. I hold all of those different plates just like all of the rest of you. But today, we're diving in to the messy, fascinating intersection of hormones and hustle. We're talking about how stress, sugar, and sleep aren't just wellness buzzwords, but they are literally the foundation of how sharp your brain stays, how steady your energy feels, and how long your body lets you stay in the game. So if you've been wondering why your brain feels like it's buffering, your mood's on repeat, or your ambition doesn't match your energy anymore, this episode is definitely for you. All right, everyone, we're diving into the Founder's Journal. So last fall, I was figuring out how to, or if I was going to launch my practice on my own. All of that was wrapped up in cortisol and what I'm wearing and dress clothes and few hours of sleep and coffee and 50,000 browsers open. That's that high functioning chaos where you're too wired to crash, too tired to think. That was me. And I'm sure all of you as well. When you're trying to do something different, make a change, whether it is opening up your new business, starting a new project, taking on something different, going outside of your box, right? By the end of the day, your heart's sprinting, you don't know which way you're going in, and sometimes you just can't even keep those thoughts straight. By the middle of the day, you are exhausted, foggy. You lay in bed doom scrolling and pretend that you're unwinding, right? But the truth of the matter is, all those hormonal changes that can occur, especially when you're in perimenopause and those hormones are going up and down, they finally are like screech on, they're revolting, and everything turns to chaos. Your, sleep is tanked, your mood's all over the map. So, you start thinking about like, I'm staring at my laptop, my hair is a mess, I'm exhausted. You're wondering if you should drink your coffee or not drink your coffee. And all of a sudden you're like, I'm the one that's trying to help all of these women get through this transition, right? So how am I still feeling this way? And how did I end up here? But the truth is that no one tells you that entrepreneurship is a hormonal sport, right? So every pitch, every deadline, every just one more email hits your stress axis like a rep in the gym, in all honesty. But in perimenopause and menopause, that stress axis, that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal circuit, which I talk about a lot, it gets jumpy. Estrogen and progesterone used to be like your built-in shock absorbers, but now they're fluctuating, ghosting you. They're leaving your stress response unsupervised and a little unhinged, which is why we feel a little unhinged. So all of that same workload that you felt like you were able to function with, that you were totally fine with at 30, 35, maybe even your mid 40s, or I'm sorry, your early 40s, now at the time, 47, now 48, it feels like survival mode. Cortisol climbs, your blood sugar spikes, sleep is out of control, creativity crashes, your thinking crashes. And suddenly you're not building an empire, you're holding the Wi-Fi together. And here's what I learned the hard way. If your business plan ignores your biology, it's broken. You cannot outwork, out hustle, or out supplement your hormones. Your body will send a memo, a little sticky note, a little tabby tab, a little buffer. And if you ignore it, it'll upgrade to a full-blown HR complaint with symptoms. So for me, it was really understanding that I needed to start scheduling recovery the same way scheduling revenue, right? So sleep, strength training, sunlight, rest. You have to treat those like business meetings, non-negotiable, because recovery isn't the reward for working hard. It's the strategy for staying in the game. And guess what? Everything shifted. When you do this, and it doesn't mean you're perfect all the time. I'm certainly not perfect all the time. But when you take that time to recover, your focus will sharpen, ideas come back, body stop feeling like collateral damage and my own ambition, right? That's when I realized that thriving in midlife business isn't about doing less. It's about doing it different. And we just need to do it a little bit different, right? It's about leading like a woman who understands her biology, but not fighting it. So as we head into the holidays, here's your friendly founder PSA. Stress ramps, sugar creeps, slips, and all three hit harder in perimenopause and menopause, especially if you're an entrepreneur carrying the emotional labor of both home and work. So you've got to build your buffers now. Make sure that you anchor your meals, guard your bedtime. This is super, super important. Say no to what drains your cortisol, because the January she deserves to start the year fueled and not fried. You don't need another productivity hack. You don't need another nervous system that trusts you. You need hormones that feel supported and not hijacked. You need to make sure that your schedule respects the woman that you've become, but not the younger you or that younger version that you're still trying to outperform. Your ambition doesn't need to shrink, but your biology just needs a better business plan, right? And that's the new founder formula. Hormones first, hustle second. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be on hormones, meaning you're respecting your hormone fluctuation. You're resting, you're exercising, you're eating well, you're having good nutrition. And if hormone therapy plays a part of that, and that is something that you also need as a part of your support system, that's okay too. We know that when your body's in alignment, your business finally follows. Now, let's go to the midlife minutes and let's zoom in on the science. Stress first. So we know cortisol isn't bad. It's a reason you can lead a team and finish a project. But chronic elevation, constant alerts, endless decisions flattens that cortisol rhythm. And what we know is that flatter daily cortisol curves were linked to worse physical and mental health. It's especially inflammation and immune function. We really need that nice diurnal cortisol. So, translation, live in fight or flight long enough and your body starts charging interest. So let's go on to sugar. Even caffeine on an empty stomach in the morning can transiently increase a spike in your glucose and insulin. I've had this happen. It's crazy because I seriously need a cup of coffee before I work out. And when I was wearing a continuous glucose monitor, I would see that. So we know that every pumpkin loaf or client gift truffle spikes your glucose, which spikes your insulin. Interesting. We know that suppression of your sex hormone binding globulin is mediated by both insulin and metabolic changes induced by glucose spikes. We also know that suppression of SHBG increases the bioavailability of circulating sex steroids, particularly androgens and estrogens, and is associated with adverse metabolic outcomes. I thought that was really interesting. I really didn't understand a lot of that until I was researching for this podcast. It was really interesting information. So we really know that both extremes, high sex hormone binding globulin and low, are associated with adverse health outcomes. So either as markers of underlying disease or by directly affecting sex steroid bioavailability. Next, we know that 40 to 60% of midlife women report disrupted sleep. Women who sleep less than 6 hours per night have a substantially higher risk of developing insulin resistance and experiencing bone loss compared to those who sleep 7 or 8 hours. Interesting. Those are reported and supported by recent clinical trials, cohort studies, and expert guidelines. Short sleep duration in women is robustly linked to increased risk of insulin resistance and bone loss, with risk estimates for metabolic dysfunction in the 20 to 50% range and for osteoporosis varying by age and population. So stress raises sugar, sugar wrecks your sleep loss raises stress. So it's this feedback loop, and the fix is less heroic than you think. Even brief postprandial or after you eat walking is an effective evidence-based strategy to reduce glucose spikes. Guys, it's super easy. So you eat and then you go for a walk. I've used a continuous glucose monitor, and it's amazing to see how much going and having some type of physical activity after you eat reduces your glucose spike. It's crazy. And if you haven't used one, use one. It's really incredible to see what happens to your body and how your body responds to certain types of foods and exercise, in all honesty. 7 hours of sleep also supports healthy cortisol regulation. So one calm morning before screens can reteach your body safety. Entrepreneurship rewards endurance and not exhaustion, and your hormones are the endurance team. So give them PTO. So let's go into the lab, the Hormone-Resilient work week. So let's engineer this. Since 6 science-backed habits that protect both profit and physiology. So audit your cortisol curve. Notice when you're sharpest and when you fade. Isn't this interesting? And I feel like mine has changed. So like I used to be super sharp, like late afternoon. And now for me, I'm up in the morning, I get all this stuff done, I do really well. And then that like after lunchtime fade for sure. And then again at honestly, 7:30, 8 o'clock, I'm just like, I'm exhausted. I need to snuggle with my kids. I need to do things with them. Don't, I'm definitely not my sharpest at those times. So once you start to learn, like when your brain is doing the best work, then utilize that. That makes the most sense, right? So we know that those natural increase in cortisol levels, known as the cortisol awakening response, typically occurs within 30 to 45 minutes of waking, with levels rising 38 to 75% above baseline, followed by a gradual decline throughout the day. Again, if this diurnal curve is flattened, there is increased risk of inflammation, fatigue, and mood disturbances. Isn't that crazy? But if you stop to think about that, it makes sense, right? When we know our cortisol is high, how do we feel? Inflamed, fatigued, and moody. But flatten that curve and risks rise as well. So that also can cause inflammation, fatigue, and mood swings if you completely flatten it. So schedule strategy work when you're naturally peaking. Admin when you're dipping. So know when you're dipping. Make sure that you are starting to understand how your shift is occurring. Anchor your meals. Start your day, protein, fiber, healthy fat. Some will say within 90 minutes of waking. I feel like for me, that's probably about right as well. Everyone's a little bit different, but we know that stable glucose means stable focus. Drinking caffeinated coffee before breakfast can acutely worsen post-meal glucose controlled compared to eating breakfast first. But this effect is transient and not seen with chronic coffee consumption. So all of you chronic coffee drinkers, looks like you're going to be just fine. But in general, feed first, caffeinate later. I can tell you right now, though, I can't do that. I get up in the morning and I literally wake up ready for my cup of coffee. So I'm just going to have to deal with that. And I will tell you, it does spike my sugar a little bit. Make sure that you are protecting sleep like your profit, right? So caffeine even 6 hours before bedtime can shorten deep sleep by an hour. And chronic short sleep raises diabetic risk by more than 20%. It's interesting because I feel like, how did we used to not sleep in undergrad and even medical school? And now if I let myself naturally go to bed and naturally wake up, I would go to bed probably by between 9 and 10 and wake up at between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. Way different than I used to be, even just 10 years ago. So if you cut caffeine by about 1 p.m., and this is definitely true. I used to love to have an afternoon coffee. It was so great. Definitely within the last 5 years or so, it interrupts my sleeps. If I have coffee, I need to have it in the morning, and maybe the latest is definitely 1 p.m. for me. Make sure you dim your lights an hour before bed. That really starts to kind of tell your brain hey, oh, okay, it's time for me to go to bed, right? Those lights need to be off when you're watching TV, when you're scrolling. It's telling your brain that it's still light out. You're still supposed to be awake. And make sure that you are brain dump instead of doom scrolling. Next, micro recovery stacking. So you don't necessarily need a spa day, although listen, I love a good spa day and I would never tell you not to have one. But even just doing 5-minute resets, like frequent short walking, standing, these breaks are effective and evidence-based strategy to attenuate postprandial glucose excursions. I have a walking pad in both my offices, and I'm telling you, it makes a difference, right? Not only are you getting your steps in throughout the day, because there's no way that I necessarily can get all of my steps in without a walking pad. It also then helps with those glucose spikes as well. Those tiny breaks can really pay off metabolically. Number 5, set a hormone boundary. So your physiology needs rules of engagement, right? So no meetings during your afternoon slump. You cannot think. I mean, I can't think. When you are in that slump, you are not going to necessarily make those sharp decisions that you're used to making, or, you're not going to function at the level that you want to function at or that you're used to constantly functioning at. Make sure that you're watching your emails after dinner. No caffeine after lunch. Studies show women with steeper cortisol declines across the day, meaning that they truly wind down, do report better energy, mood, and immune markers. So boundaries protect that slope. And it can be really hard, right? Like, it's really difficult for us to put those boundaries on, but we have to stop being our worst enemy and really make sure that we are setting those boundaries and setting those lifestyle modifications so that our health span is protected, our work is protected, our goals are protected, personally, professionally, is so important. Number 6, move for bone and muscle. During menopause, women lose 2% of bone mineral density per year, roughly 10% over the decade around the transition. We know, you've heard me talk about this, that we lose the most bone in that late perimenopause to early menopause transition, meaning that we absorb more than we are building. It is important that resistance training and impact training, like in the Lift More trial, actually increase spine and hip bone strength in postmenopausal women with low bone mass. Muscle mass typically decreases by approximately 1% per year or 10% per decade after the age. Typically between 30 and 50, you start to see that decline. And then after the age of 60, that increases even more, anywhere between 1 to 2% per year. So as part of aging, we are already losing muscle. So it's really, really, really important that we do all of the things that we can. And I stress this so much in my practice. It is so important to resistance train with cables, with resistant bands, with dumbbells, with body weights, with medicine balls safely. But we need to do it to maintain that muscle mass because that muscle mass is so important. Protein, muscle, longevity, increased health span. It's so important. 2 to 3 strength sessions a week plus daily weight bearing work are not vanity. And listen, I like 4 strength sessions, but I am happy with my patients doing 2 to 3. So these aren't vanity, they're longevity insurance, just like we talked about. Your hormones are not obstacles, they're operating data. So read them, respect them, and your business, and more importantly, your body will scale sustainably. All right, everyone, if this conversation hit home, if you're realizing your hormones have been quietly negotiating against your business plan, here's your next move. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen so you never miss an episode of the Founder Series. Rate and review the show. That's how other women find the science and sanity in midlife. Then head to osteopathicmidlifehealth.com to book your personalized consultation. We'll map your hormones, your health span, and your next chapter because the best investment you'll ever make is in your longevity and your health span. And while you're there, join the Midlife Minute newsletter, your weekly dose of clarity, data, and real talk about thriving through perimenopause and beyond. If you listen to me on the Pinnacle app, you can also earn CME if you're a clinician. Share this with another founder, physician, or friend who needs the reminder. You don't have to burn out to build something beautiful. So I'm Dr. Rebbecca Hertel, and this was the Founder Series, the Hormone-Business Connection, Stress, Sugar, Sleep, and Success. And I will see you next time. So remember, your hormones aren't holding you back. They're showing you the way forward.